Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video on the Stats YouTube channel. We have a lot to get to today, so I want to get started. Let's first we're going right into this. Like I said, we have a lot to get to, and I tend to talk a lot, so let's get started. In my last video, I ended at the last tournament I talked about was Yale Underground. So we're moving right along to Brown Invitational. This was an invitational that was the same weekend. So you can see Acton, Boxborough, Syosset, Lexington, and Stuyvesant. I think that's how I decided I'm pronouncing that. Competed here. All fairly competitive teams. Acton Boxborough. The main takeaway here is that Acton Boxborough is unstacked. They're unstacked here, and they managed to beat Syosset. This might have been, I don't know, Syosset's B team or something. Maybe they were missing some people. But this is, if this was Syosset's A team, then that is a pretty bad sign for them. Again, this was a team that at MIT, Acton Boxborough, they went unstacked. Even super scored, though, they were tying Syosset, basically tying 1 point difference. That's an effective tie. And for the longest time, I had them in a tie together. But I think this tournament here is breaking that tie. We'll go over here. There's a lot of stuff to talk about here, so I'll get to all of that eventually. But for now, we're looking at Syosset and Acton Boxborough. I've actually moved Acton Boxborough ahead of Solon. That's partly because of this invitational, partly showing, Acton Boxborough is a fantastic, absolutely ridiculously competitive team this year. And the other thing is that later we'll see an invitational that Solon did not do that great at. So for those reasons, I've moved Acton Boxborough ahead. And you can see over here my little color coding. I know some people were asking about this in the last video I did. Yellow highlight just means that it is a significant change. So Acton Boxborough moved up from, again, a tie with Syosset at what is that, sixth, I think? Yeah, sixth. They've now moved up, again, ahead of Solon. I'm putting them ahead of Solon for now. That matchup could be very, very close, but for now, I'll keep them there. Let's get back up to where we were here. Lexington, something to talk about here. I think later we'll see a little bit more from Lexington, but Lexington is actually an incredibly competitive team. Again, thank you to Sentient Tree on Discord for sharing this with me. If you look at Massachusetts state results from the past couple years, Lexington and Acton Boxborough actually aren't that far apart. And Lexington has a real shot of beating Acton Boxborough at the state competition. I don't think that's likely. I'd maybe put it at 10%. I forget the number that Sentient Tree told me he would put it at, but there is a shot. Lexington has a shot to beat Acton Boxborough for Massachusetts' one and only bid to nationals. So that is quite impressive from Lexington to be able to compete with such a team as Acton Boxborough. Moving on, we have Loyola Invitational. Again, likely somewhere in the Midwest. We have a bunch of Midwestern teams here. On paper, Marquette takes this one with New Trier's teams being unstacked, of course. Once you super score them, though, they beat Marquette by a very significant margin. And you might be wondering then why New Trier. I have them highlighted in whatever this color is, ocean blue, I guess, because I wanted to remind myself to talk about them. I tend to forget things a lot, things that I want to talk about in videos. So I wanted to highlight this to remind myself to talk about New Trier specifically, because this is of course an incredibly strong performance from them. However, there's a tournament that I have not added on here yet. That is Northwestern Invitational that, again, Sentient Tree shared with me on Discord. And at that tournament, New Trier does not do very well. I haven't looked too closely at that. I haven't looked too closely at the super scores for that. They were unstacked there, just like they were unstacked here. But even if I'm remembering correctly, even New Trier's super score was not very good at that tournament. And again, I think like Marquette attended, and I think Stevenson attended. Like I said, I don't have this tournament on here yet. Because it happened just yesterday. And I wanted this video to focus on some of the tournaments that I haven't covered yet, because I added a bunch of stuff here, and of course things changed a lot. So I didn't want to add another tournament to throw another wrench into my video here. But I will be talking about it. I will be talking about it hopefully sometime this week. Again, this past week has been really kind of stressful for me. A lot of stuff for school kind of came to a head. There was a lot of things due this past week, but I got through that, and I'm able to make videos again. So yeah, back to talking about tournaments though. Again, this is a very strong performance from New Trier, but given their recent performance at Northwest, if those results hold, they'll be staying in about the same spot, maybe even dropping a little bit. Their Northwest performance was really not great. Again, I wish I had the time to add that on here and to show you, but again, it happened just yesterday, so I want to give some time for that to resonate a little more. So for now, we're giving New Trier the benefit of the doubt. We're keeping them right where I had them. Right where I had them before, I should say, before I saw Northwestern results. So again, ahead of Stevenson. I wouldn't classify it as a tie like these, but yeah, not the greatest performance from New Trier there. Again, a very strong performance here though. Marquette, again, not a whole lot to talk about here. A very, very strong team. I think this is almost exactly this. I think is actually exactly the spot that I had them in. I think Harriton was above them. Actually, I moved Harriton down because you'll see the soup results. I want to talk about that in quite a bit of detail later. Because I think out of these tournaments, soup was probably one of, if not the most impactful, one that we're going to be talking about today. Moving on to Michigan, University of Michigan. Here, of course, we have Mason, Marquette, Solon, and Carmel, and Troy and Troy Athens. This really confused me, by the way. I thought that these might be the same school. I looked it up. They are not. They are from the same general area. And interestingly enough, they are rivals. So, oh, whoops. Didn't want to do that. There we go. Sorry, Troy Athens. Interestingly enough, they are rivals. So at this tournament, Troy Athens takes the victory here, almost a 50-point lead over their rival Troy. So congratulations, Troy Athens. Now let's talk about the top teams here. Of course, like I said, we have Mason, Marquette, Solon, and Carmel. Fairly competitive lineup here. And I super scored Mason, and then I was looking at these scores, and I noticed that they beat Marquette by, oh man, I keep doing that. They beat Marquette by almost 100 points. That's, I don't know, 90, what is that, 89 points? Something like that. Still, a very, very large gap there. And I was like, wow, that's Mason. That's unstacked Mason. And then I looked at their other team score, and I was like, I don't know. So I went through here and looked. I don't think this Mason team was unstacked. I think that this first place Mason team was their stacked roster. That would explain why they, beat Solon so badly here. But yeah, looking across here, there was one event I think it was forensics here. No, it wasn't. Wait, I'm stupid. Sorry. Forget what I just said. There was one event I thought that their other roster here, their second place roster, did significantly better than the top team, than their first place. I can't find it. I thought there was one event though. But anyway, yeah. So I'm not gonna count this Mason super score. We will be counting Solon super score though. Again, this is okay. I mean, that's still 100-point gap. But oh wait, no, it's not. Again, I'm stupid, man. I'm recording a little later here, so it's not like late at night or anything. So I really don't have an excuse for this. But anyway, yeah. So this is a 10-point gap. Solon definitely unstacked. So when you super score Solon, they get obviously a lot closer to rivaling Mason's stacked score, but they don't beat it. In fact, Mason has, I would consider this a significant gap. It's obviously not very big in the grand scheme of things, but, a 9 point gap, that is, I'd classify anything above 6 or 7 points as significant. So I do think that this is a significant gap. I don't think it's quite enough to put Mason ahead of Solon, but they've definitely gotten close. And this was the tournament I was talking about that Solon really didn't do that great at. I mean, they still did Solon things. They still did very well. But it's the tournament that I was talking about that made me drop them a little bit here. Again, keeping them ahead of Seven Lakes recently at their own invitational. They managed to beat Seven Lakes. I think that was a fairly significant margin, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, decently significant, decently large margin there. Yeah, we're dropping Solon down a little bit. Still, again, a very competitive team. Just had a little slip up here at this tournament, it looks like. Now we move on to Soup. I think I'm actually going to talk about UMass first, University of Massachusetts first. And leave Soup for last, because like I said, I think that Soup is really our main tournament that we want to talk about here. So University of Massachusetts. This tournament, of course, we had Syosset and Lexington, and a major thing here, Lexington beats Syosset. So correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, Syosset beat Lexington here. That's a fairly significant gap, but then when you go up here, completely different story. Lexington beats Syosset by about the same gap, actually. So Syosset slipping a little bit here. In fact, I might even move Syosset down below Monte Vista. I think I will, actually. I think I'm going to move Syosset down here. Not quite below Montgomery, I don't think. But their MIT performance is still amazing. But since MIT, we haven't really seen, we haven't seen the Syosset team that we know and love, I feel like. Like here, third at MIT, fantastic. Absolutely incredible performance. But then you advance time a little bit here, and, getting beat out by unstacked Acton Boxborough, then getting beat out by Lexington. Again, still a very competitive team. I still expect them, of course, to take the first place trophy in New York, but slipping a little bit. I think they're still in the top 10, still squarely in the top 10 ahead of these teams, but I think they're slipping a little bit here. So a little unfortunate for Syosset. And again, Lexington, very competitive team. It's just a shame they need to be in a state that only has one nationals bid, and with Acton Boxborough, one of the most competitive teams in the nation. Now, I think that's all I want to talk about. Oh, I guess we can talk about this. This is St. Johnsbury Academy. This is the Vermont state champion. We had one other data point for them here. Not a very good data point. This isn't a very good data point. Yeah, Vermont, not a very competitive state, of course. I just included them on here because, it's nice to have some data on the state champions and stuff. And to see who is likely going to nationals. Again, I don't think we have any data on any other Vermont teams. No, we don't. This is the only one. But it's pretty safe to say they'll get the Vermont state championship, but won't do very well at nationals. Now, let's talk about Soup. So, like I said, this is the main tournament I want to talk about for a couple reasons. The main one being the implications for the Pennsylvania state competition. New Jersey's affected a little. North Carolina's affected a little. New York is also affected slightly. Again, these two teams, I think, are, they're definitely behind Syosset, but they're still fairly competitive teams, and they're both vying for the second spot in New York's second bid to nationals. And right now, I have Great Neck South up. Not only is they directly beat Ward Melville here, but I think if we look at their recent performances, pretty good performance here. Not very competitive team. South Windsor, again, this is the Connecticut state champion, I believe. Connecticut, not a very competitive state, of course. here, not a great performance, getting beat out by Syosset. Um, and then we go back to Battle. Fairly strong performance at Battle. But I do have Great Neck South up because of this win against Ward Melville here. William G. Enlow. This is a team that I started off. I think I had them pretty low, and then I think was it MIT? It might have been MIT. Okay, they did not do very well at MIT actually. I might be making stuff up then. Maybe I don't think I had them on the list at all because they didn't do very well. Haven't been doing that great until this tournament here. Again, fairly decently competitive. They got, I believe, 10th last year. We can check this. I don't know why I'm guessing. Yes, they did. They got 10th last year. So fairly competitive team here. Getting beat out by Montgomery and Cumberland Valley. Again, I'm a Cumberland Valley alumni, so I'm going to try and remain as unbiased as possible here. And also, I in some ways, I intentionally delayed talking about Soup because the night that these results came out, when I first saw this result and saw Cumberland Valley's fantastic performance here, I was absolutely ecstatic. And not only is this a very strong performance for Cumberland Valley, but their in-state rival Harriton, not a super great performance for them. You know, they were unstacked here, obviously, 10th and 13th. Even when you super score them, though, this is a significant gap. You know, this is, what is that, 12 points? Am I crazy? No. Wait. No. Other way. It would be 8 points. This is an 8-point gap. Yeah, I'm fairly bad at mental math. But yeah, so 8-point gap here. Again, just barely a significant margin for me. I'm going to get a drink real quick. All right. All right. So, yeah, again, just barely a significant margin here. And I don't think that this puts Cumberland Valley ahead of Harriton, but it is very, very close. And I had Harriton in 9th or 8th here. I bumped them down to 10th. I've put Marquette ahead of them. Again, Marquette's doing about as we've expected in recent tournaments, but again, not dropping at all, and Harriton dropping a little bit, so they move up by proxy here. And I've put Cumberland Valley in a tie with Enlow. Again, beating Enlow by, again, a just barely significant margin. But then Enlow, of course, beats Cumberland Valley here at MIT. Again, I said in my last video that I talked about, when I talked about the Solon results, that I think we should consider Cumberland Valley's performance at Solon and now Soup more heavily than their performance at MIT. Again, their performance at MIT here, we shouldn't discount this, of course. But again, after talking to the president of Cumberland Valley Science Olympiad, their goal at MIT wasn't necessarily to do well. It was to learn. And again, judging by their most recent performances, both at Soup and Solon, they have certainly proven that they have learned from MIT and grown quite a bit. But yeah, Harriton, again, their performance at MIT is still very, very strong. Of course, especially compared to Cumberland Valley's performance. But I think that this result here definitely moves these two teams closer. And now we get to the big question. Which team is going to, how is the Pennsylvania state competition going to play out? And it's a tough question to answer because all three of the top teams, Harriton, Cumberland Valley, and Lower Merion, have proven that they are amazing and very competitive. So I think it's not. I think it's still Harriton in first right now. I think I have this. Yeah, I think it's still Harriton in first right now. But the second place team, and again, that's due to their performance at MIT mostly. But the second place team is really hard to assess right now. As you can see, I did a little bit of math here. So at Princeton, which is stacked Lower Merion, this is the best we've seen Lower Merion all season. I think. Once I find it, here it is. This is the best we've seen Lower Merion all season. On paper here, they beat Montgomery and Westminster. When they're super scored, of course, they beat Lower Merion. Montgomery, though, at Soup, we saw how Cumberland Valley performed against Montgomery. Here we see how Lower Merion performed against Montgomery. So again, I've done some math here. At Princeton, Montgomery beat Lower Merion by 30, super scored Montgomery, I should say, beat Lower Merion by 37 points. And at Soup, Montgomery beat Cumberland Valley by 36 points. Now, let me talk about some things first here. I was talking with Sentient Tree about whether we should super score Montgomery at Soup. When I was watching the award ceremony at first, I thought that that Montgomery was unstacked. But then when I saw the full results, I wasn't so sure. I think they weren't. I think they were stacked here. And that's because if you look at, events that their second team beat their first team in, there's only, I think, two I found that were a significant gap. And the others, their second team, there were maybe two, I think, that their second team beat their first place team by like 1 point in. So, and I mean, when I competed for Cumberland Valley, it wasn't uncommon for our B team to beat our A team in a couple events, even by a significant margin in fact, that exact scenario happened at Soup for us last year. If you were to look at our Soup results from last year, at Cumberland Valley Soup results from last year, you might think we were unstacked, and we were not. So I'm not going to super score Montgomery for Soup here. I think that's fair because, again, their second team beat their main team by a significant margin in just two events. So I think it's fair to keep Montgomery unsuper scored here and assume that they were stacked. So if you do that, you find that that both of these teams are about equally spaced from Montgomery. And again, this is assuming, so of course the timing is different here. This Soup was the 17th. Montgomery has improved since Princeton. CV has improved since Solon, which was the same weekend as Princeton. And of course, Lower Merion has very likely improved since Princeton. And Princeton being the 3rd of February. So significant time gap. And of course, there's different tournaments as well. So these results might not be super comparable, but I do think they're telling. I think that they're telling because what am I trying to say? I think that they're telling about how close these teams are and how close the Pennsylvania state competition could be this year. I think it's safe to say Harriton's in first. I'm putting Cumberland Valley ahead of Lower Merion, like I have been for the past couple months here, because of their performance at Soup and Solon. We just have more data on Cumberland Valley, is really what it comes down to. We have more data that they're extremely competitive. We have Soup and we had Solon. Lower Merion, we really just have one tournament. And when you look at Cumberland Valley and Lower Merion's most recent matchup at Soaps, which is fairly recent in the grand scheme of things, it's getting up there in age. But if you look at Soaps, here we go. Cumberland Valley beats Lower Merion's 3-team super score by 10 points, which is a significant margin, of course, in my opinion. So I think it's fairly safe to say that Cumberland Valley is decently ahead of Lower Merion right now, but I think it's closer than you might think. And one more thing to say about Soup. Last year, I should have put the Soup results from last year on here. I'm just remembering. But last year, I'll do my best to describe it. Soup proved to be a perfect indicator of the Pennsylvania state competition. And what I mean by that is last year at Soup, if you look at just teams in Pennsylvania, Harriton, they of course went unstacked. When you super score them, Harriton got first, Lower Merion got second, Cumberland Valley got third, and that exact ranking happens at the Pennsylvania state competition. Of course, that doesn't mean that's what's going to happen this year, because if it did, then I'd put Cumberland Valley ahead of Harriton. But I think that it's very telling about the importance of this tournament for Pennsylvania. So I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say here. Again, here's one last look at my updated rankings. Again, I'll be talking about Northwestern results. There were other competitive teams other than New Trier that attended that, so I'll definitely be talking about that. I might even give that its own video if there's nothing else to lump that in with. But thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic day.